Hey, Eastern Oregon, we're glad you're here with us today for this CHD COVID update. And as always, I'm uh, glad to be joined with Carrie. Thanks, Carrie. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm all right. This is the only place we ever see each other.
It's true. I'm definitely following the guidance and definitely limiting my time out in public, but I'm okay with that. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I'm
Yeah.
okay hanging out at home.
Yeah, I wonder, I've said this to begin with. I wondered how many people, after this is all over, they really didn't want to shake hands with people to begin with, and so that's I think that will continue to be a thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think there's some of us that are maybe better suited for it than others, but I think even for those of us that are introverted or naturally like to spend time isolated or quarantined, so to speak, it definitely is different. And I think that it's still challenging because things are definitely not normal. So, I think we just have to continue to trudge forward and continue to stay the course, knowing that we're moving into the fall and that this is hopefully going to be the only fall we ever have like this.
For sure. And with Halloween coming up and people have to navigate that and figure that out, and I am noticing a little mask fatigue, I think is what I would call it. People being a little bit more casual. Certainly I'm guilty of that as anyone else, that people are just, they're exhausted uh, by the situation. I think, our numbers are looking really good, and I think that adds to that. People are just a little bit more relaxed, but I'm always reminded, even when I'm in a social situation, that it's like, okay, how would I keep track of the number of people that I was engaged with for longer than 15 minutes in less than 6 feet of distance, and that's kind of the contact tracing guidelines still, I presume. And that would be a pretty heavy burden.
Yeah, and the guidance actually for contact tracing and investigation did change not too long ago to where we do look at that 15-minute time period, but we also consider an accumulation of time as well. So I think that if we and we're always going to look at somebody's risk, and they've added the fact that if I interacted with you, like if you and I were in the same space for 8 hours a day, but we came into contact for like a couple of minutes at a time. But that added up to a lot of interaction between us. Like you still might be on my contact list, even if we didn't meet that strict definition of within 6 feet of each other for 15 minutes. So I think, again, this is all about looking at our risk for contracting the virus. And if we're around somebody that has the virus, if we're indoors in a small space, even if we're 6 feet apart, we may think that there's a risk. So it just is really important for us to think through all of the steps in our day. And like you said, I just ran into the office to grab a few things, and the whole time I'm thinking about all of the interactions I'm having, and I'm always thinking, like, is this person going to be on my contact list? And if they asked me today what I did for the last 14 days, am I going to be able to remember that full 14 days, all the people and all the places I went? And, my list is pretty short because I am pretty much, keeping my activities limited. But, I know that there are a lot of people in our community that have to go out and they have to work in public and they're interfacing with public in their jobs all the time. And so, again, having that to come up with that contact list could be really hard.
Yeah, I've been keeping track of my eating on a diary, is keeping a diary of my eating with an app. And when I forget a day, that's it's amazingly difficult to figure out, okay, what did I eat? And so I can only imagine, how that would apply to the number of people that you ran into or you had a conversation with, or you know, so thankfully, I don't think we're doing too much of that in the area, but the reality is that all we have to have is just a couple of cases where that involves in a public space, and then I mean it becomes very complicated again. So good for us to remember those things. So Halloween is that next week? I think it is. Yeah. So talk to us about that a little bit, and what are you hearing, and what are your recommendations for us, Carrie?
Well, I think my recommendations are probably going to be similar to the recommendations that I've been giving every time we talk for the last 6 or more months. It's more than 6 months now, it seems. And it's almost the end of October, and we're entering into a season where we have events like Halloween, we have holiday markets, we have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, we have I think a lot of times we'll have celebrations with people outside of our household. It's just the time of year that we do those things. And I think that, what I really want to urge our community to think about is, either how they can modify those celebrations to maybe not do them this year, or rethink how they do them this year so they can put the precautions in place. And if they do go to events, or they do go forward with Halloween related activities or other activities, that they really, really think through how to do those in a way that is safe and mitigates the risk of virus transmission among people outside of their household. We know, and we've talked about every time that I have been on here with you, we've talked about staying home if you're sick, really good hand washing, face coverings, and then, of course, the physical distancing. And, we just really need people to continue to do that. And, like you said, I think people are a little bit worn out. And honestly, we're asking people to change behavior, and behavior change can take a really, really long time. And it is very, very easy to slip back into our normal routines and patterns. And so I think it's, again, not really hard to stay constantly diligent. And so we just really do need people to continue doing that, because like you said, right now, I think we have been really fortunate that our case counts have been low. And I've been tracking the national news, and I'm seeing stories of viral activity happening in other states pretty substantially. I'm hearing, calls for assistance for healthcare providers because ICUs are starting to fill up in certain places. And so, again, going back to the very beginning, when we talked about flattening the curve and maintaining our hospital capacity, I think that needs to continue to be our objective. And we need to make sure we do that by not having a significant increase in cases in a short period of time. So again, we just need to continue to do those activities. So Halloween activities, Oregon Health Authority is definitely not recommending that we do traditional trick-or-treating events, door-to-door, or the trunk-or-treating events. They definitely consider that a high-risk activity because you're interacting with people outside of your household. You're in close contact with lots of people. It's really hard to maintain physical distancing. So they're really not recommending that they do that. If people do go to Halloween events, I just, again, can't stress enough how important it is to keep that physical distancing. And, primarily for, again, 2 reasons. We've talked about before, people that are in high risk categories. So, people that have underlying health conditions or who are more likely to have a severe course of the illness, they might not be attending that Halloween event that the children go to with their parents, but those children may go home and interact with them either in the household or in a social setting like Thanksgiving a few weeks after Halloween. So, again, just really thinking through all of the potential risks that go along with that. And the other thing that I really think about is the risks related to school reopening and continuing to have in-person instruction. And, I don't know how likely it is or what the threshold would be for us to have to send our K-3 students back to comprehensive distance learning in LeGrand, or to send our rural districts who have all of their students in person back to comprehensive distance learning. But for me, I think, is the risk of those Halloween activities and events worth taking that chance that we could not have students in school? Because I feel like that really is worth taking the risk to some extent, knowing all the mitigations that they're putting into place, but really thinking like, can we do Halloween in a different way this year? And I think I'm more optimistic than I give myself credit for. So I've been really trying to think at like, is there an opportunity for us to start a new tradition this year? Is there an opportunity for us to discover a way to celebrate that we didn't really think about before because we didn't have the opportunity to look at how we're doing things differently? So I'm just, again, really trying to approach it in a way of like, let's make the most of it, even though it's not the way we've always done it. And to really just try hard to encourage everybody to remember to think through all of the mitigations and really practice the precautions so we reduce the risk of having a large scale outbreak after this event.
And for most people and kids, the fun of Halloween is dressing up. And, they can still do that. You can still dress up and take pictures and put them on social media. And certainly the Parks Department here in La Grande is having a drive-through Halloween event. So families can stay in their cars and drive through the park, and they have a mechanism of handing out candy, but yet keeping all those social distancing requirements in place. And so, yeah, it's a different year, but we just have to find ways of pushing on to some kind of normalcy. But just keep in mind, before the outbreak that we had, we were feeling pretty fortunate, and I don't think anybody expected that, in one testing event, we would have, I don't know, what was it, 280 positive cases or something like that. I think we went from 10 to almost 300 within a week, and made national news. But that is still, that is still a possibility for us. We're not any less vulnerable now than what we were then.
Yeah, if you go, yeah, no, and I went onto the Oregon Health Authority website today, and they have this page where they report out testing results. So they report out the number of tests that are done in each county. They report out the test positivity rates, and they have a visual. And if you look at Union County's visual, there was basically one day we went from 0, and there's a huge spike. And this happened over a very short period of time. And I think it is really easy to think, well, right now we're doing good, so I don't need to be as careful. Right now there's probably not a lot of virus in the community, so maybe I don't need to be as serious about wearing my mask, or, it's probably not very likely that this person that I'm chatting with in the store has COVID, so I'm not going to take, as many precautions as normal. But the reality is that we could go from a small number of cases to a large number of cases fairly quickly, just depending on the situation, or if we have, multiple places where there's been a small group of people interacting, that could go from 0 to a lot of cases really quick. And I looked today at the other counties in the state of Oregon that are similar in size to Union County. So basically between the range of 20 to 30,000, there's a handful of counties. And there was only one county that had more cases than us. And most of those counties had at least 100 fewer cases than we have. So, even though we've had, we've been fortunate over the last few weeks, and I really hope to keep it that way. But, we're not immune. And just because we're doing good now doesn't mean that could change in the future. And I'm, really concerned about what things look like as we move into the fall and we're inside more. And I'll tell you what, I was just outside a few minutes ago, and that wind is blowing and it is cold. And so we're all going to be I looked at the forecast, it's going to get cold over the next week. So we're all going to be inside more. We're all going to be in close contact more. So the likelihood of us spreading the virus among our families or among people that we're, congregating with in workplace settings or social settings, it's just going to be higher as we move into this next few months. Then you're going to add flu on top of it and other viral infections. And I think it's just, I know it's hard to continue to do these things that aren't normal for us, but I think we just have to stay the course. And again, I always go back to why we're doing this. And it's because we want to have our family members, our friends, people that we care about, not get sick and not have a severe case of the disease. And so, again, I just say, like, I can wear my face covering today to keep the people around me safe, or keep the people in the community or the store, people I don't even know. I can stand 6 feet away from that person. I don't need to stand right next to them. And, I've washed my hands way more now than I ever have in my whole entire life. And, fortunately, I haven't been sick, knock on wood. But, if I'm sick, I'm definitely going to be more diligent about staying home. And those are things that I can do to help others, which I think makes me feel good too.
Well, and I totally am with you, and I agree. I mean, this is a time for us to be courteous to one another, and uh, you know, I I'm one of those people that I comply, but I'm not fearful. I'm not gonna be paranoid. I'm not gonna be a masked Nazi and act, be on someone else if they're not acting the way that I'm acting. So there's a balance there, and we've got to give each other grace both ways. So in other words, if somebody feels more comfortable, even if we're 6 feet apart, somebody feels more comfortable with me having a mask on, that I'm going to give way to them. And on the same thing, if clearly somebody can see that I'm complying, then and they can give me a break by not pushing me to do, to go extra measures beyond what's required because of their fear, then that's how we get along with each other, because we're giving way to each other. So, but at the same time, we just can't forget that it is a real thing. We can't prevent it, but we certainly can do everything that we can to curb the activity. So,
Yeah, and I was thinking about this morning, and I one of the things I love about living in Eastern Oregon is that I really do feel like we care about each other. And I do really feel like this has always for me been about thinking about others, and doing my part to keep people in my community safe. I mean, it's definitely why I do this work that I do, and why I love working in public health so much. But I do, I understand that people don't want to be told what to do. I mean, I get all of that, but I do always come back to the fact that this is a small step that I can take to keep other people safe. And those are people that are loved by, people in our community. Those are people that are family members and friends and loved ones of people. So again, I try and put myself in their shoes, try and put myself in the minds of others, and try and act accordingly. So again, I know it can be exhausting to keep doing these things. And I think I'm hopeful that we'll start seeing a vaccine, and that the treatments that are coming online will become reliable, and that these measures won't be needed in the way that they are now. But I think for the time being, we still have to stay the course.
yeah, absolutely. So mask guidelines have changed, and I have no knowledge, so I'm as curious about this as everyone else. Tell us what the newest news, and this is from the Oregon Health Authority. Is that correct? So talk to us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so as of a couple of days ago, October 19th, the Oregon Health Authority did update the statewide mask, face covering, and face shield guidance. And I'll be honest with you, like, I did read through this, but there's a lot of nuances and details. So I'm not sure that I am an expert on it so far. So I'll just give the general overview and really encourage people to go look at that guidance specifically to make sure that they understand it. But I mean, the basics are that it really focuses on making sure that people are wearing face coverings in places where they are going to be within 6 feet of other people that don't live in their same household. And so that would include places like businesses, which, again, those are already required, but indoor spaces that are open to the public, outdoor spaces that are open to the public, and all private and public workplaces. So the like I said, the general idea is that if you are going to be anywhere where you're going to be within 6 feet of people that are not in your household, you should be wearing a face covering. I think the other piece of this guidance that changed a little bit, that they got a little more specific on, is guidance related to face coverings versus face shields. And so a face covering is a cloth or the paper surgical face masks that you see people wearing, that fits on your face. And then the face shield is more of like a clear plastic shield. And so right now they've really changed the recommendations around face shields and are basically saying they should only be used in very, very specific circumstances, that for the most part they should that you should use the face coverings or the face masks rather than the face shields. And so the guidance does spell out circumstances where a face shield would be the best option. And there are cases where it makes sense. If somebody is hard of hearing and they need to read your lips, then absolutely a face shield is a great option. If you're working with students in certain types of settings where it's developmentally appropriate. So again, the guidance will outline that for people if they have questions about that. But the science behind it kind of, I think is helpful for me in thinking about why they're making these recommendations. So, when we first started talking about COVID-19, we really believed that it was primarily spread via droplets, which are heavy. And so, the droplets can't travel a significantly long distance. And so, again, if the assumption is they fall out of the air before they reach people, then the face shield is fine because the face shield will stop them because they're heavy. And what we're finding now is that we also think that there is aerosol transmission, and I don't know a lot about the science of all of this. So, but the idea is that it's more like a hairspray can or a can of spray paint where the droplets are smaller and they have the ability to float in the air a little bit more than an actual droplet. So the face shield, if it's aerosolized, it's likely that it can go around the face shield and out into the air and then be out in the air for the other people to breathe in. So, so now that they are continuing to learn about the science of the virus and how the virus is transmitted, they're updating the guidance accordingly. So again, there are situations where face mask does make sense, but if the new guidance really spells out that you should primarily wear face coverings or face masks. So that's definitely one of the major guidance updates. And I think, there's definitely a lot more detail in there, but that's the primary gist. And I think what people just need to remember is if you're going to be anywhere in public, indoors or outdoors, with people that are not in your household and you can't stay 6 feet away from them, you should wear a face covering.
And that makes sense. None of that surprises me. I'm a face shield guy. Because it's what I can do to keep me from driving me crazy. But it's kind of funny. I do have, I've had people say, the reason that they prefer a face covering is they can put it in their pocket. It's handier, and so that's kind of funny. So, and there, we do have, George did put that information in the Facebook comments, so people can click on those links and find the more detailed information also. So, well, thank you, Carrie. Anything else you want to mention to us?
No, I mean, I think that is really pretty much covers it for this week. Again, I know that I often talk about the same things every week. And I think I'll be honest, I have to remind myself of these things too, because it is sometimes hard to keep doing different behaviors. But I'm really grateful for the residents of Union County for taking the recommendation seriously. And I hope that they continue to take these action steps so we can keep the rate of transmission low in our community. And I think the other thing that I think is really important for us is that, acting quickly really does help us minimize the number of cases that we have. And so if people believe that if they're sick, the sooner they can stay home, the better. And even if their symptoms are mild, if there's any way possible for them to minimize their contact with other people, this will really help us slow and prevent the spread. And then I think if you hear that you're a potential contact to somebody that's sick, then really acting quickly and making sure that you quarantine yourself. Again, I think just the ability to quickly respond will help us keep the rate of spread low. And so we all play a part in that. We can all help each other make that happen. And so I just appreciate everybody's efforts and really look forward to seeing it continue in our community. Like I said, I really believe that we all care about each other here. It's one of the reasons why I love living in Union County. And I think that we also really value taking care of each other. And I just remembered one other thing that I feel like is very, very critical this year, and that is getting a flu vaccine. So I'm not sure why I didn't think of that before, but one of the things that when we talked about hospital capacity, keeping the hospital capacity available for people that have severe illness. So now we're going to have COVID-19 in the community, but we're also very likely to have flu viruses circulating. So we have a vaccine that can really help prevent flu and really, again, help us achieve that objective of keeping the rate of serious illness in the community low. So I would encourage anybody and everybody in the community to go get vaccinated for flu. CHD, you can contact CHD. We have information on our website. And I'm sure there's other opportunities to get that in the community as well. And I just can't stress enough how helpful that will be. This fall, it's really more important than ever. Number one, because we want to make sure that people don't get severely ill. And this is one tool we have to help prevent that from happening. But it will also, again, help us maintain that hospital capacity so we can make sure that we are able to care for people that have severe illness.
Good. And I follow that. And that certainly is understandable. And it kind of falls into the theme of let's do what we can, And I mean, I know that people are fatigued. I'm tired of it. Everybody is tired of it. But and regardless of your opinion on the whole matter, just do what you can, I think that, I get a little perturbed. I mean, it's huge news when the COVID cases go up, but we don't have a vaccine. And I get a little perturbed because it's like, yeah, they're going to go up. I mean, we knew they were going to go up. The science numbers have not changed, and I think part of that is tied to the political climate that is going on right now. But it still doesn't relieve me from doing what it is that I can do. Wearing a mask is better than not wearing one. I mean, washing your hands, staying home when you're sick. These are all just really common sense things that they're not difficult for us to do regardless of our opinion. And they demonstrate courtesy and concern for each other. So good.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, Carrie, like always, thank you so much for jumping in with us and joining us. And Eastern Oregon, thank you again for being here today. And we have a conversation with CHD every other week, and we'll be back here again next Wednesday. Tonight at 6 o'clock, I'm having a forum with the two mayor candidates from Island City. And if you'd like to be a part of that, we'd love to have you jump on and submit questions for me to ask them. Thanks again, Eastern Oregon, for tuning in.